This will never get done. This will ruin my future. I can't do this. This will be the end of me. I'm toast. Is that you? If it is, you are engaging in what we call catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is a common cognitive distortion, one which I discuss with my students at length. And let's first talk about what are cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions are habitual ways of thinking that are often inaccurate. And this word here is very important, inaccurate. And they're also negatively biased. So we already have this natural tendency of engaging in negativity bias, meaning that whenever something happens to us, we tend to see or perceive the negative aspects of what happened to us more saliently. Catastrophizing is always assuming that the worst will possibly happen. The mind has this incredible capacity to anticipate outcomes, to project into the future and make causal connections. The mind predicts, and in this process of predicting, it produces predicting errors. And that's the problem with most cognitive distortions, and specifically catastrophizing. In the case of catastrophization, we think that an event, usually a negative event, something that happens to you, that, it's unfortunate, but we tend to assume that the consequences of that bad event will be, catastrophic, to say the least, right? We catastrophize when we imagine the worst possible outcome. So, for example, if you get a poor grade, you didn't do well in a test, you got a poor grade, and you think that that grade is the end of your dreams, that you're never gonna be able to get into graduate school, into optometry school, into medical school, or if you have a disagreement at work, you think you never get promoted. So whatever you're going through, it's not gonna end well. It can't end well. That's your mind trying to project into the future. We need to keep our minds down. We'll talk about that. So this kind of thinking, if you're always catastrophizing, of course, it creates a lot of anxiety because you're always projecting negative things that will happen into the future. And living in states of heightened anxiety is extremely unpleasant. We engage constantly in ruminating thoughts. I still remember to this day in biology class when we were learning about the digestive systems of ruminants. And remember, the ruminants, like cattle, like sheep, like deer, they chew the feed and then they regurgitate previously consumed feed and they chew it further. So imagine your brain always bringing those bad things that happen to you or that may happen to you, that haven't happened yet, but that may happen to you. This kind of thinking is extremely anxiety producing. Living in states of heightened anxiety is extremely, extremely unpleasant. We are constantly ruminating thoughts, and I still remember to this date in biology class when we were learning about the digestive systems of ruminants. And what do? They chew, ruminants such as cattle, deer, sheep, they chew the feed and then they regurgitate that feed and they chew it over and over and over again. So imagine that you're trying to live your life and constantly these thoughts are coming back to your mind to haunt you. Or just these negative projections about the future are constantly bothering you. And the thing is that they're often inaccurate. And when we are constantly ruminating and feeling anxious, we feel tense, restless. There is this sense of impending danger. There's always danger that's going to happen in the near future. It creates then, of course, a lack of focus. If there is always something in the back of your mind bothering you, can't focus on what is in front of you. Then you have trouble concentrating, you have trouble sleeping, and the list goes on. So considering all possibilities of what can happen in the future, including negative consequences of actions or of events in your life, it's probably an adaptive process, right? It has some value to it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have carried it from generation to generation. However, it is a good strategy if you can be logical about it. But the problem is that oftentimes we are not logical about it. We are very emotional about it. Linda Blair, in her article, How to Stop Catastrophizing, gives us 4 easy things that we can do to manage distorted thoughts, particularly catastrophization. So let's go over them. Number 1, accept yourself. If your brain tends to catastrophize, don't fight it, but learn how to tame it. This is, know thyself. It's the old maximum of knowing thyself. If you are a catastrophizer, accept it. Listen to yourself. And learn how to talk back to the thoughts that are coming to you. Remember that thoughts are not facts. And you have to accept that that's how your brain operates. You have to accept that that's how your brain operates, and then you, of course, have to do something about it. Remember that anxiety and the brain bringing these ideas, it's energy. It's dark horse energy. And wasting energy on things that will probably never occur is a huge waste of time and energy. Therefore, use energy for something that is positive. When you are in that state of catastrophization, that things are always coming to your mind, those ruminative thoughts, engage in bodily activities. Engage into activities that will bring your mind away from them. So it's important that you accept yourself, that you know yourself. So when you're engaging in those thoughts, you can immediately, all right, I'm getting to that zone. Let me do something to get out of that zone. The problem is that we often tend to solve mind problems with the mind. And sometimes that doesn't work. So you got to engage the body in solving mind problems. So try to engage the body as much as you can. Go for a walk. Go work out. Engage in social interactions. Anything that can interrupt the pattern of catastrophization or of rumination. Take control. Remember that you are anticipating a future that has not happened yet. Try to get as much information about the worst possible outcome that could happen if that anticipated future actually became a reality. So what do I mean by that? If you didn't do well in that particular test, well, talk to your professor. Talk to an advisor. You didn't get a good grade in organic chemistry. Go talk to an advisor and say, I didn't get a good grade in organic chemistry. I got a C. Were there other students who got accepted into professional school with a C in organic chemistry? And the answer typically will be yes. Do something about it. Take control. Don't let your dark horse do all the talking. So again, call an advisor, call the school you're applying for, talk to a professional. You take control. Don't let the voice inside of you take control. Remember that your predictions can be faulty and that emotions are not facts. So talk back to your thoughts and feelings. Do a test. Do a test. I love the concept of doing this test. In the past, you have probably agonized about similar situations. Have you? Have you not? If you have, what were the outcomes of these things that you're agonizing about, that you're ruminating about, that you're catastrophizing about? Is it possible that the outcomes were not as bad as you anticipated? So if the outcomes were not as bad as you anticipated, what is the indication that at this time it will be any different? If the outcome was bad, then you probably learned something from it and probably have evolved from it. But if it didn't happen, then it didn't happen. What can you learn from it? If your predictions are true, for instance, if you fail a number of tasks that will impede you from pursuing certain career goals, then you have always plan B. So remember that's important for us to remember. If your predictions were actually true, something happened, and there was a very bad outcome, and the bad outcome actually stopped or prevented me from achieving a certain outcome. Well, what do you do then? Is the life over? Are all possibilities no longer possible? No, there's always plan B. So implement plan B. And then if that fails, implement plan C and D and keep on implementing whatever plans you have. Do the best friend test. I love the best friend test. What would your best friend tell you? Or what would you tell your best friend if your best friend was going through a similar situation like yours? We're so good to strangers, not necessarily strangers, but to friends. But people with strangers, what I mean is people who are not us. And we are horribly at being kind to us. So if a friend shared with you the situation that he or she is going through, and it was a very terrible situation, and the consequences could potentially be bad, what are some of the things that you would say? You would say some of the things that I just said. Take care. Take action. Go talk to someone. Dig deeper. Try to understand what are the alternatives. So do the best friend test and be your best friend. Learn to self-soothe. I think that's a key one as well. When you're catastrophizing, you have pent-up negative energy. Your dark horse is going crazy for you to react to it. It's going to convince your charioteer to act. Do not act. Go for a walk. take deep breaths, keep yourself busy. Remember that sometimes going for a good night of sleep cures everything. So accept yourself, take control, do the best friend test, and learn to self-soothe. Remember, you have probably catastrophized in the past, and at that time you thought it was the end of the world. And look where you are today. Probably 99% of the things that we catastrophized about did not materialize. Or they probably evolved in a very different way than you thought they would. There is always a way out. There is always an alternative. There is always a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, and plans that don't even fit in the alphabet, that you're not even thinking about. Talk to someone, get some help. Talk to a mentor, talk to a parent. So although not catastrophizing is nearly impossible, we you know, for some of us, that's just our MO. It's what our amazing brain does. It's really what our amazing brain does. So accept it, keep it on check. And I hope that if not eliminate, I hope you can bring the catastrophization down a little by applying some of these strategies that we shared here. If you like this video, please like, comment, share it, and I hope to see you in the next one.